Finding a balance between work and family can be tricky, but what about when you look to add to that list by training for a triathlon? In this episode, I share my tips and tricks to make it all fit together. It may seem daunting, but it's just like a puzzle. With some time and patience, you'll find the right solution. Welcome to the Working Mother Triathlete Podcast. I'm here to help you achieve a healthy, well-balanced life so you can feel prepared and ready to achieve your triathlon goals. Remember to follow us on Instagram and YouTube at Working Mother Triathlete. One of the top reasons people do not sign up for a triathlon is that they don't think they have time to actually train for one. As working parents, just one part of our lives can feel all-consuming. Whether it's the fact that work follows many of us home each evening and feels never-ending, or it's the endless list of house and kiddo-related tasks that need to be completed each day. Or you're just too tired when you get home from work and you may not feel like you have time to work out before getting the kiddos to bed. In this episode, we go over ways to fit in triathlon training sessions and general fitness sessions when you are already busy with a career and family. We all know that being a parent is a full-time job all on its own. When you add a career and trying to get regular exercise or training in, on the surface it seems like an insurmountable task. And that's what I told myself for years. It's so easy to put your own fitness on the back burner while you go to work, take care of your kids, clean your house, cook meals, spend quality time with your kiddos, etc. But look at it this way. In order for you to be at your best for your family, sometimes you need to put yourself first. I know this sounds selfish, and that's how I felt for years, which is why I for 7 years, I did not prioritize my own fitness. But as I've been told several times by the productivity and morning routine expert Amy Landino, sometimes it's okay to be selfish. A healthier, happier you means a healthier, happier kiddos. And who doesn't want that? It's all about striking the right balance for everything on your to-do list, which, if it's anything like mine, is never ending at this point. I want to compete in triathlons for years to come. It's one of the few sports that you really can do from an early age, really up into there's people in their 90s who are out there, competing out in some of the hardest triathlons. So in order to do this, I've learned to get creative to make sure that I'm getting in all my training to complete the triathlons that I sign up for, while still making sure I'm getting in other key items on my to-do list done each day, including time with the girls. So fitting in your fitness routine can seem like an enormous task, but with some planning ahead, it's something you can do. So here are a couple of my tips and tricks on how I make sure I can get in my training on a weekly basis so that I can finish those triathlons feeling strong. Number 1, wake up earlier and have a morning routine. So next episode, we'll talk a little bit more about morning routines. But the whole waking up earlier thing, I know a lot of you are looking at your phones or computers and wondering, well, how am I supposed to wake up earlier? I know it's much easier said than done. I'm a morning person. I've been that way my whole life. So waking up early is not something that's foreign to me. It's something I've done since a young age. Since being pregnant with my oldest, I've become a member of what they call the 4 a.m. club, where I am up by around 4 a.m. the mornings that I'm going into the office at least. And I've been doing that for at least 12 years. So much so that I've converted my husband, who is definitely not a morning person when we met, into a morning person, kind of. Those first few hours that I'm awake are by far my most productive hours of the day. Whether I'm going for a swim or a run, recording a podcast, or getting into the office before everyone else. If you're able to wake up 30 or 45 minutes earlier each morning, would that be enough time for you to get in your workout? While I am not a proponent of suggesting people, especially parents, get less sleep, I find that when I get up early and get in my workouts, usually before anyone else is up, I'm happier, sharper, more focused on tasks later in the day, and I sleep better at night. That makes me feel like I'm being a better mom to my girls, as well as a better employee at the office, a better wife to my husband, and a better friend. You can start trying to do this by just getting up 10 minutes earlier each weekday. So 10 minutes doesn't feel like an insurmountable task to most people. That way you're not doing any sort of major shock to your system by all of us. If you're used to waking up at 6 and all of a sudden waking up at 4:30, that's a major shock to your system, and you'll likely, your body will kind of rebel against you, and it'll be a lot harder to stick to that routine. But instead of getting up at 6:30, what if you got up at 6:20? And after a couple weeks of doing that, what if you got up at 6:10? And you do that kind of slow acclimation, your body will adjust. My second tip is to use your lunchtime So a lot of us will sit, and I know I'm a big offender of this, I will just sit and eat my lunch at my desk, partly because I have a hard cutoff at the end of the day. I need to get home. My kids have activities. I need to get them places. So I have to leave by a certain time, and I have certain things that have to get done during the day. And I try very hard to not work at night once I get home. So if you're not able to find time at the beginning of the day or at the end of the day, start using your lunchtime at work to squeeze in a workout. Even if it's something as simple as going outside for a 20-minute walk, especially now that we're going into the nicer weather. That way you're getting some exercise. Now, these aren't going to be super intense workouts, and getting a swim session in is unlikely if you're unable to pop out to the gym. But there's still exercises you can do during this time to get your heart rate up a little bit, and any little bit it helps. So you can go for a walk or do some light body weight exercises. The third suggestion I have is doing what they call a playground workout. When you take your kiddos to the local playground, especially now that the weather is nicer, what do you usually do? I know that when my kids were younger and I took them, I used to sit or stand on the side, maybe, chat with a friend I would see if they were there also, catch up with my husband, and we kind of more of a chill hangout scenario. This is the time that you can use to get in some body weight work. You can get creative. Use the monkey bars for pull-ups. Use the edge of the step up to do some tricep dips. There's so many different things you can do. You can walk circles around the playground. You can do high knees, butt kicks. There's all sorts of things you can do to get your heart rate up and get in a good kind of base exercise here while your kids are playing. So you're not having to find a sitter, you're not having to spend less time with your kiddos, and you can still get some time in for you. Tip number 4 is get your kids involved in training. We talked about this a little bit at last episode as well, and it's a constant theme you'll hear throughout. I love getting my kids involved. Family training sessions are by far my favorite sessions that I do each week. Like many triathletes, my longer workout sessions are usually on the weekends when I don't have to worry about getting to work on time or have anywhere pressing to go. This past summer, for my various running sessions, I started to take my kids with me. They would bike or have their scooters while I ran, and I like to give them little tasks. One will have the water bottle on their bike for me. The other may have the GoPro to do some recordings for me of running. I've also done running sessions with my dogs at various points. Though, be careful, as warm and hot weather kind of roll in now that we're going into summer, your dogs will overheat much faster than you or me. And they'll also be wary of their feet if you're running on blacktop, because that can tend to hurt their little feet. By doing this, I didn't feel like I was missing out on time with my family, and I was still able to get in an hour or sometimes a longer run. I think I ran up to 12 miles last year when I had the girls with me and they were on their bikes. So it's great because they've gotten in a workout themselves. They've burned off some of that energy that they seem to have an endless supply of. And we're spending time together. And it's some of the girls, when I look back and I ask them what they enjoy, they point to those sessions. We got to go do this with you. And recently I've been taking them swimming with me. In the pool where we swim, it's 2 family members can share a lane. And so I will take them. And of course, they're with COVID and not having access to pools. They're a little behind in their swim lessons of where I'd like them to be. But they're getting stronger. I watch them just week over week, and it's amazing how fast they're learning, and it's fantastic. And they're seeing me put in the work and the time, and it's teaching them good habits to the point that for my kids have now started to try to get on our trainer. We have an indoor trainer bike, and they're waking up, 10 minutes, 20 minutes earlier and doing they do very short rides, but they're doing something before school even. So they know staying that physically active is part of our lifestyle, and they get excited to go do things with us. Something else we've started doing recently is going for family mountain biking rides on the weekend. So, or even just a hiking trip. We've done a lot of those too, especially during COVID last year when a lot of things were on lockdown. We could go out there, get outside, still stay distant from anyone else. And something like a family hike can count as your triathlon training session for the day likely. Hiking is a great way to build up strength and endurance. Same thing with mountain biking for your bike rides. They work different sets of muscles so that when you go out and do a road run, your legs are feeling great. And you've built up strength in other areas that you didn't maybe weren't focusing on before. And from a mountain biking standpoint, that's a great way to gain strength quickly, as it takes a lot more effort to climb up and over, the mountain, the hills and the rocks and the roots that you might be going over than it does to simply ride on a flat road or a paved road. My last tip or trick is to get an app or a program, sign up for a program. Between the internet and phone apps, there's no shortage of options out there for different training sessions. Over the years, I've tried a bunch of different options, and I do believe there's a good fit out there for everyone. I know it's really just recently that I found what I think is a great fit for me and really complements the training that I do. And I do a strength session every day. Now, sometimes that strength session is really more akin to a dynamic recovery, not actually lifting weights every day, especially now that we're getting closer to race season. But you can do these from home. You can do them while you're on, traveling, especially if you travel for work. There's not really an excuse at this point, given the apps that are out there and available and the streaming capabilities of these apps to not be able to get something done regardless of where you are. Some are free, others require, payments, either annual or monthly. Kind of try different things on and see what works for you. But the flexibility is fantastic, especially when you're a working parent and you have more limited times. You can do these whenever. So if you can't make that cycling class at your gym, okay, well, there's different exercises you can do at home that will work the exact same muscles as if you went to a cycling class, for example. So it's great to not kind of be tied down to someone else's time schedule, and be able to really work and do your workouts at a time that works for you. Also, this means you don't have to arrange for childcare for your kids to get training sessions in, because most of these apps you can do from home with little to no equipment. I can keep going on and on with other ideas of how and when to fit in triathlon training sessions. But at the end of the day, you need to make it a priority if this is something you want to do. I know it's a lot easier said than done. I am the queen at coming up with some amazing plans for me to be able to have it all, only to have the fitness part of my plan unravel a few weeks later. That was me for the first 10 years of my oldest daughter's life. I'd always find an excuse. I'd always find something else that needed to get done. The kitchen needed to be cleaned before I went to bed, so I did that instead of hopping on the bike. Or I needed to go to the grocery store instead of planning ahead and placing the order to be delivered. So I wasn't able to go out for that run. There's always an excuse. There's always a reason, especially as a working parent, to not get it in. But when you make it a priority and you plan ahead, you can fit it in. For me, I didn't always used to make fitness the priority in my plan. When I would plan out my week, the kids' stuff would be prioritized. My work obviously would get prioritized, and any other family time. And at the very end of that list, after cleaning the house, after running all the errands that were needed, then if there was time left is only when I would prioritize or get my fitness in, which meant it wasn't going to get in. So I have shifted that priority list. My fitness is now one of my top priorities. And this way it doesn't allow me, I don't have that excuse in my head to postpone sessions unless I'm injured or traveling, when we're allowed to travel again. And when I did that, I did all that. I made those excuses when I first started training for triathlons. I was not happy with my results. I am someone who strives to be good at the things that I do. And so not finishing feeling great after my first triathlon was really kind of the kick in the butt I needed to start making, change that priority list, to pull my personal fitness up on that list of priorities and say, you know what? If some dishes are left in the sink at night, that's fine. I got my run in though. I got my bike in. Whatever it is that I needed to do or would plan to do that night. Once I made my training sessions a priority, it's amazing how easy it was for me to adjust the million other to-dos in my life and still go to bed at night feeling like I accomplished what I wanted to throughout the day. Now, of course, not every day is like that. There are still days that I have trouble getting out of bed. There are days that I spend too much time debating in my head what I'm actually going to do when I get home from work at night. And there are weekends where I want to do nothing but sit on the couch and watch Netflix. I mean, who doesn't want to do that? But I have that other voice in my head that reminds me why I am doing this. And this is why knowing that why that we talked about initially is so important. if you want to find balance, if you want to fit everything in your life together, complete that puzzle to have the life that you want and a life that feels fulfilling, you need to think, you need to know why you're doing things. Because when you have that in your head, when you can pull that out at any point in time, it's a lot harder to tell yourself no. It's very hard for me to go home now that I've been doing this for a couple years. And if I plan to swim, for example, at night, it's a lot harder for me to go home and skip that swim, because in my head, I know when I go to bed that night, I'm not going to be happy with myself. I'm going to wonder, well, what if I had done that? What if I had done that? Fit this in. What if I had let that sit for another day or ask for some help? My kids are a little bit older at this point, so I expect them to help with the dishes. I do have, my husband at home, and he helps out as well. So it's splitting things up. There's different ways to do it, and it's not going to be one size fits all for every family. But my goal at the end of every day is to go to bed at night feeling good with what I got done that day. And if I don't get some sort of exercise, even if it's just a dynamic recovery kind of stretch out or roll out, I don't feel good about myself for that day. So it's something that I do have to constantly work on. It's still something I have to think about, because I did get in that habit when my kids were young of putting myself last. So it's a constant work in progress. It's not easy by any means, but it's definitely something that's doable and achievable for everyone. And if you need help with that, if you have questions on that, I'm here to help. I know how hard it is to struggle. I spent 10 years trying to figure out how I'm going to do this. And I had a lot of starts and stops, hit a lot of obstacles, have come up with probably almost every excuse in the book to not work out, to not make myself a priority. But I have now at this point finally found that healthy balance where I feel like I am still spending significant time with my kids, still spending time with hubby, getting my work done during the day, and going to bed feeling accomplished. Each week, I highlight a different workout you can work into your regular routine. This week, we're going to highlight one of my favorite run workouts, and it's a transition or a brick run. A transition or brick run is a short run, 1 to 2 miles or 15 to 20 minutes, depending on what you have available, that you complete right after a bike ride. Doesn't matter how long that bike ride was, but the purpose of this run is to help you train your legs and your brain to get used to that shaky leg feeling. The first time you do this, what you're going to realize is going from the bike to the run is actually quite a bit of a challenge, and your legs are going from, going in circles with very little pressure or being put on them and no weight at all pretty much, to carrying your entire body weight. Practicing this run once a week, at least, maybe even twice a week, will really help you when you go into that transition, that when you get off the bike and you're trying to run or jog your bike into that transition area, your legs are going to feel much better, as well as when you get out onto that run. That's all for today. Thanks so much for listening. Stay positive and keep training like a mother. See you here next week.